Today's episode of the Bleav in Steelers podcast is brought to you by betonline.ag. And Ike, we are one day away from the month of March. March Madness is going to be here. The NBA and NHL are heating up. We always got UFC. Might not be football season. Free agency right around the corner. The NFL Combine a day away as well. So much to bet on. And if you want to place a wager on the action, betonline.ag is the place to do it.
All this madness in March because of college football is going to be so exciting. Make sure y'all go to betonline.ag.
College basketball. Like, it's still early. It's Monday morning. I got you, though. Go. Head over to betonline.ag on your desktop or mobile device to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code Bleav. That's BLEAV to get started. Bet online, where the game starts. All right, cue the music. It's time to start the show. Welcome to the Bleav in Steelers podcast on the Bleav Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mark Bergin, joined as always by my guy, two-time Super Bowl champion and 12-year veteran of the Pittsburgh Steelers, number 24, Ike Taylor. IT, we're one day away from March. March Madness is almost here, a day away from the start of the NFL Combine. A lot to talk about here on today's episode of the Bleav in Steelers podcast. How are you doing this morning, my man?
Man, I'm good. Woke up at 6 o'clock this morning, got on my knees, thank God, and on the podcast with you right now, man. So I'm doing all the way good.
An early start for both of us, no doubt, Ike. And that's going to be, we'll see here. Hopefully it's the only time we have to record this early in the morning. So if we slip up, full disclosure to the listeners and viewers, we're recording a little bit earlier than our normal time.
Yes, I'm good. You got teamwork made the dream work. So, we got to do whatever we got to do. So we dedicated to this podcast, so we're doing whatever it takes to do this podcast. So that's what I love about the good teamwork we got.
I love it, Ike. Let's get right into it. The Steelers GM search continues. And so this comes on, just before the eve. We're one day away from the start of the NFL Combine. Everyone knows Kevin Colbert set to step down after this year's draft. But Ike, I think the theme to me with the Steelers this offseason is no stone left unturned, because you look at the number of candidates that they've interviewed for the GM position. You've got Omar Khan and Brandon Hunt internally. You've got Morocco Brown, Rand Carthwell, Ryan Cowden, Ed Dodds, Joe Fortes, Dan Morgan, John Spytek, Andy Weddle, John Wojciechowski, and JoJo Wooden. And so the Steelers, again, no stone left unturned. It's a new era of Steelers football. It's not just Big Ben, but there's going to be a new GM come May as well. And so they've interviewed even more candidates since the last time we've talked about this, Ike. And that's something that's going to continue on and on and on, really, as we get closer and closer to May.
Yeah, they're going to take their time. It's going to be very thorough. It's going to be some good background checks. It's going to be a whole lot of talking between Coach T, Kevin Colbert, and Mr. Roney. It's just to still await. When you're trying to get a successor for the great Kevin Colbert, who I think in my mind will be a future Hall of Fame, especially as a general manager, man, that's just tough. That's just tough to replace. So they want to do everything in their mind as possible to try to find a guy something equivalent or close to Kevin Colbert. But you talk about a Kevin Colbert, the GM right now for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Mark. You talk about a guy, man, who's from Pittsburgh. You talk about a guy who understands the physicality because he was one of the best hockey players in the city of Pittsburgh. You talk about a guy who grew up on the 70s Steelers. You talk about a guy who understands what it is to be a Steeler. You talk about a guy who grew up under Bill Nunn, the great Bill Nunn, who's in the Hall of Fame. So when we talk about this, yeah, they're going to have to take their time. They're going to have to do it early. It's really going to be a gut decision. The resumes, you can throw the resumes out the building. I think in my mind, this decision is really going to be on the gut. My gut, my instincts really tell me this is our guy for this job. because everything I just said on what it is to be a Yinzer, if you from Pittsburgh, that was Kevin Colbert.
And speaking, hang on. Speaking of someone with Pittsburgh ties, I want to know as well is I left off Louis Riddick, who played football as college football at the University of Pittsburgh, but he wasn't listed on the team's official website. I know how well connected you are to the organization. Do you know anything further about this? I've looked everywhere on the internet. You know how thorough I am with my research, but he was not listed on the team's official site, despite reports like 2 or 3 weeks ago saying that the Steelers would interview him for that GM vacancy.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, hopefully we'll see. If he said it's on, I guess it's in the making, but we'll see, Mark.
I was just confused by that as all. And I was just, again, like, you know how thorough I am with my research, Ike. So it's like I was scouring the internet. I was scouring Twitter. I was looking on the team site. I was looking all over the internet on Google. And it was like, wait a second, because this is something we talked about here at the Bleav in Steelers podcast of someone who has playing experience, someone who has front office experience, someone who is very well connected as an ESPN analyst too. But he was not on, like the team will tweet out, hey, we've interviewed these candidates from these teams. And despite the earlier reports saying that the Steelers would in fact interview him, or they planned on interviewing him, that wasn't the case of who they've actually gone on and interviewed. And again, it is a lengthy list. No stone left unturned for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, Steelers don't let you dictate. They dictate. So, I mean, it sounded good. Maybe it was publicity for him. Maybe he was trying to get more money on his contract. Maybe he just wanted, that on his resume. Maybe he wanted a favor from the Pittsburgh Steelers for the next go-around next year if he didn't get this job, that, hey, man, people are interviewing me. Well, Pittsburgh don't dictate that type of stuff. I mean, they don't let people dictate. They're not into the social media world, if you know what I'm saying. So the fact that he haven't, the fact that his name haven't came up, it's looking kind of fishy, Mark.
Yeah. I know that I'll speak for myself here too, Ike, and I Bleav you're of the same thought process that Omar Khan and Brandon Hunt are the favorites to land this position, the two internal candidates. That's what I'd imagine the Steelers will do. Are you of the same thought process there, Ike? Because that's what I think will end up happening.
Yeah.
One of the two.
Yeah, I really do. But then you just think like, well, I'm going to say this. I hope they do. But then you just really think, Mark, it's like, what's taking y'all so long with this process? Mm-hmm. Like why y'all keep interviewing other people? So do you not like what's in-house? That's how I look at it. Because if the book was already written between B. Hunt or Omar, things would have, been laid on the line right now. Hey, between Omar and B. Hunt, these are two finalists. This is where we're headed. Boom. Here we go. They're going to be successor of Kevin Colbert. But interviews after interviews after interviews after interviews after interviews and different people, it just got me sitting back like, okay, so do they really trust and Bleav in B. Hunt or Omar? And here you go again, the Pittsburgh Steelers way. They always find a way, or they always say something to be like, well, we just got to go through this process. Or I remember when I was doing my contract, they was like, yeah, Ike, this is everything you didn't do. I'm like, God damn, I just got an interception in the goddamn Super Bowl. I had an interception in the Denver Broncos game. And we in the playoffs, like, I am leading the Pittsburgh Steelers in interceptions for the playoffs. What the hell I didn't do? I feel the same way for B. Hunt and Omar Khan. Well, you guys, this is what we feel like y'all need to work on and what y'all can't do right now. So that's just the old Pittsburgh negotiating way. That's what they do. But it's like, you just got me pondering on why they haven't said Brandon Hunt or Omar Khan at this point in time.
Yeah, it's interesting, Ike. In like a week, we'll talk about this again. It'll be 3 or 4 more candidates from various teams just because, like I said, I mean, this has just been such a thorough process. I have one theory before we move on to the next topic, too. So when Kevin Colbert and Mike Tomlin were down at the Senior Bowl, there's this, the Steelers are infatuated with Bleav Willis. And I think some of that is true, but I can't help but wonder. I'm going to float this idea out there, Ike. I know the Steelers will need a quarterback successor to Big Ben, that they're expressing their interest in Bleav Willis to drive up his value, but to really do that, to go after the quarterback that they're actually interested, whether that's, say, I don't know, Ole Miss quarterback Matt Corral, one of the other young stud rookie QBs who will be coming into the league. I'm just going to float that idea out there, Ike. I was thinking about this in preparation of today's show.
Yeah, Kevin Colbert, things always come when we get on this podcast. Kevin Colbert about to do what Ozzie did on his last year with the Baltimore Ravens. He's going to get him a quarterback and call it a wrap. So they ain't doing nothing but running game right now. That's all Pittsburgh doing. Since we sitting here talking about quarterbacks, the Pittsburgh Steelers will get a first-round quarterback. The same situation with the Baltimore Ravens. It's Ozzie on his last time being a GM. Now, Ozzie is still the consultant. Kevin Colbert still says he wants to be a part of the Pittsburgh Steelers, so he's going to wind up being a consultant as well. So what was the last thing they gave Ozzie? They gave Ozzie the first round, a quarterback. This is exactly what the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to do with Kevin Colbert. Big Ben has retired. Kevin Colbert drafted Big Ben. So Kevin Colbert, on his last time out, he's going to get a quarterback to be his successor. The only question is who? Because it's always smoke and mirrors when it comes down to the Pittsburgh Steelers and these draft tactics.
Ike, you're destroying my dream of Aaron Rodgers in the black and gold, but that's okay.
No, I'm not. You still got action. You still got time. I'm not. Listen here. I laughed at you last year, and I said, man, what the hell this dude is thinking? And then everybody talked about it after our show on a strong possibility, or if could, or Coach Tomlin and Aaron Rodgers, they flirting with each other. Mm-hmm. It's a strong possibility that Aaron Rodgers could be a Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm not putting nothing past nothing when it comes down to you and your thinking.
Okay, Ike, let's go to a listener question that we received. And David Orochena asks, this is regard to shifting or the potential shift to a 4-3 defense. David asks, why would the Steelers shift to a 4-3 with TJ Watt? Can you explain how that would accentuate his skills?
Yeah, David. So 4-3, technically, your two down defensive ends don't need their hands in the dirt. And I've seen TJ Watt put his hands in the dirt. TJ Watt coming out of college, he had his hands in the dirt. So that's what you got to understand. Now, he had to adjust himself on being a stand-up outside linebacker in the 3-4. But TJ Watt can do both. He can put his hand in the dirt or he can stand up. And it just depends on Coach Tomlin to give him that leeway. And I think Coach T will give him that leeway, whether you're in the 3-4 or the 4-3. He can be like, TJ, whichever one you're comfortable with, you can use any technique you want to. So, yes, I'm glad you asked that question. But a guy like TJ Watt, who can pretty much play any scheme, whether it's a 4-3 or 3-4, whether it's his hand in the dirt or he's standing up, it really don't matter to him.
Yeah, and I think I don't even look at Watt because we know what he can do as a pass rusher and also making plays in the backfield. He's not just a pass rusher. Mm-hmm. But I look at what are the other things the Steelers would need to do if they do, in fact, change defensive fronts. And so I think it would involve either getting Tyson Alualu and Stephon Tuitt back or going to the draft or signing a free agent defensive tackle to shore up the middle and get Cam Hayward some help. And what I mean by that is just really more depth so you can make sure that whoever ends up playing at the defensive tackle position or nose tackle in, say, a one technique or a zero technique directly over the center and the A gap, that there's some stability on the interior of the defensive line. Reason being, this was a Steelers defense that allowed the most rushing yards in the league in the 2021 season.
Yeah, you got to get a big boy in the middle. You got to get a plug in the middle. Regardless on whether it's a 3-4 or 4-3, that's just what Pittsburgh, I think, is going to do in the draft. They're going to get him a plugger an athletic plug in the middle who can hold the fort down, who would give opportunities for Cam so he won't be getting pressured so much, who would give opportunities for Stephon Tuitt when he comes back to be able to roam a little bit. So, yeah, they might go 5 down linemen sometimes. You just never know depending on the drafts and how they feel, especially with the mastermind of Coach T and Coach Brian Flores, the defensive specialist now. So they're going to mix. They're going to do a little bit of everything when it comes down to fronts and disguise and just mixing the defense up depending on who they play. But, yeah, I really do think they're going to mix in that 4-3 defense because that's what Coach T, he first in a lot of stats when we was doing real good when he was at Minnesota, second in a lot of stats when it came down to the running game when the Pittsburgh Steelers was doing real good, and he was the defensive coordinator in Minnesota. He was a dog at that 4-3, and he had 2 studs sitting in the middle at the 4-3. And I'm not saying he's going to go to the 4-3. I just think he's going to use more of a 4-3 when it comes down to fronts for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So you have to get 2 athletic big D tackles and nose tackles to be able to run that defense. And I think they're going to answer some of them calls in the draft, Mark.
You mentioned adding depth at the defensive tackle position. Ike, what are some of the difficulties in shifting base defensive formations? Because traditionally, the Steelers are a 3-4 defense.
Yeah, so it's now the linebackers, So in a 4-3, you got four backers. You got the Mike, the Buck, the Will, and the Sam. So that's 4 linebackers, and you only got 3 D linemen. And in a 4-3, you got four D linemen and 3 linebackers. So if you was to switch, you wouldn't want T.J. Watt to be an outside linebacker, a traditional outside linebacker, somebody who's covering, a tight end or a running back coming out the backfield. Nah, a specialist over T.J. Watt is getting to the damn quarterback. It's as the teams that he's played. So you would still keep him on the defensive line. So now you go in the draft because Pittsburgh is also looking at linebackers in the draft as well. You get your young studs in the draft who was able to run. So you had guys like Devin Bush before he, had this injury. Hopefully this year he would be 10 times better than last year because it's a couple of years after his injury that he'll get back to what he once was. And that was covering tight ends and running backs coming out the backfield. Your Ryan Shazier kind of body type guys. Your guys who can pretty much do it all. That's what Pittsburgh is going to look for. So in my mind, that's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to get D tackles and they're going to get linebackers, young linebackers who are able to run. And when you do that, and just my thought process, you're going to work some of your fronts off the 4-3 defense, not the traditional 3-4 defense. Even though the 3-4 defense is very complicated for a lot of offensive guys and offensive linemen to decipher, especially on the go. Once you say hut, that's why everybody run it. You have to have that personnel for it. And Pittsburgh does a good job on drafting personnel for that 3-4 defense. But I know since Coach Bus is gone, Coach T, this is his defense, that 4-3. He's been dominant when he was DC at Minnesota in that 4-3. And I think they're going to shed a little bit of that 4-3 in that Pittsburgh Steelers defense.
Yeah, Minnesota and Tampa Bay, that classic cover 2 with Warren Sapp and Derek Brooks. Ike, you mentioned Ryan Shazier, someone we had on the pod late last year. Could you imagine this defense with both TJ Watt and Ryan Shazier? Like, oh man, that's a great what if he were still healthy, what Ryan he would be doing on this defense right now.
I mean, you would have had Ryan Shazier and Devin Bush. I mean, come on, man. I mean, Ryan came out of Ohio State running the 4-3 as a linebacker. And we all see where he was headed before his injury, but God had different plans for him. Devin Bush, when he was healthy, we all saw what he was doing. Old school Pittsburgh Steelers smacking people in the face, running with everybody. So I think Pittsburgh wants to get back to that, especially at that linebacker position. You got to have linebackers who cover nowadays. And they hoping and wishing Devin Bush this year will get back to the old Devin Bush. But I think in my mind, they will draft another young outside linebacker who will be able to run with these young tight ends and these running backs. And don't forget, man, I still like Spillane. I feel like Spillane needs an opportunity to showcase. I feel like this is his time as well at that linebacker position. He's another old school, hard-nosed Pittsburgh Steelers, kind of guy, a guy who wants to smack people in the face and just loves football. That's what you want with your linebackers. I need smart, fast, aggressive, violent linebackers. And I think Spillane is one of them. So you get Spillane, Devin Bush. If you want to go to the 4-3, you get Spillane, Devin Bush, and another young stud. You got action.
Yeah, with Spillane, I love his physicality. It's the pass coverage that there needs to be improvement upon. He's still a young player, though, too. And I Bleav he's due to hit free agency as well. So we'll see if the Steelers, in fact, retain him moving forward. But, Ike, we're going to take a quick break. We'll get to free agency in just a second here, but we got to take a quick break to tell our listeners and viewers about NordVPN. So when it comes to internet security, nothing beats the peace of mind on all of your different devices, your phones, your tablets, your laptops. NordVPN is the world's best VPN service, offering the fastest connectivity, most servers, and the best next-gen encryption to make sure everything that you do online stays secure.
We told y'all ain't hacking us because we ain't slacking, because we got one of the best securities on our team in NordVPN.com.
And the viewers of the Bleav in Steelers podcast can see that link on your screen right now. Grab your exclusive NordVPN deal by going to NordVPN.com/Bleav or use the code Bleav. That's BLEAV to get up to 70% off your NordVPN plan plus one additional month for free. It's also risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. Like I mentioned, free agency, it starts on March 16th. And last week we talked about which player should the Steelers re-sign. So I want to flip things around here too. Okay. Which players due to become free agent who aren't current Steelers should the Steelers pursue? And maybe the better way to ask this question, Ike, is you always talk about what it means to be a Steeler. Of all the players due to become free agents, which player, who is a Steeler out there, who would you like to see Pittsburgh go after this offseason?
Russell Wilson is a Steeler. And the reason why I say Russell Wilson is a Steeler is because he's held it down for the most part of his whole career. Going from one college to another college, to the Seattle Seahawks, to playing injured, to overcoming adversity, to not having the luxury of a true offensive line and still able to win Super Bowls, to not having the luxury of, let's say 3-4 years ago, not having the luxury of a true number one receiver and still overcoming and being successful. So letting Russ cook. And we came up with that concept. Let Russ cook, because can y'all see me? Oh, video.
We lost you for a second here. All right, we got you back, Ike.
We back. My mom, she got this new iPhone and she know how to FaceTime multiple people at one time. So now she just like a kid in the candy store now. So, but getting back to Russ, man, Russ just, in my mind, he's everything you're looking for in the Pittsburgh Steelers. Doesn't say too much, gets the job done, is a team player, and that's exactly what you want coming from Pittsburgh. So I think Aaron Rodgers would be the dream fit, but Russell Wilson is a Pittsburgh Steeler kind of fit. So that's what I think in my mind.
Okay, that's Ike. You took this in a totally different direction than I was expecting, but that's okay. Few things I want to clear up, Ike, and I got to push back a little bit for the sake of the show. One Super Bowl title with Russ. It should be two if they had given the ball to Marshawn Lynch many seasons ago. So he's been to multiple Super Bowls, but he's only won one. And then, look, I understand traditionally he hasn't had a number one receiver, but no love for my guy DK Metcalf, who's like a mutant. No love there as a number one receiver in Seattle.
Like when it comes down to taking pictures and showing some of his athletic ability and being mutated with his shirt off and all that good stuff, yeah. but you still got to put up numbers on the field, Mark.
Tyler Lockett doesn't do it for you either, Ike?
Lockett does it for me before DK Metcalf. I agree with that.
Okay.
Oh, 100%. He's been the most consistent receiver for the Seattle Seahawks than anybody over there. And before that, you can go to Baldwin. Baldwin was one of Russell Wilson's favorite as well when it came down to receivers. But now consistency, the hidden gem for the Seattle Seahawks, if you had to start a football team and you want to draft DK Metcalf or Lockett, you're going with Lockett. And it's just his consistency. You'll get caught up in how DK Metcalf, how he looks, his studness, and everything else. But we want to talk about being productive on the field consistently. It's Tyler Lockett.
All right, Ike. Also, Russell Wilson not due to become a free agent. Yes, while there is an out with the Seahawks, they're not just going to let him walk, especially considering he'd have $26 million in dead cap money. But he has made it clear, and quarterbacks clearly care about their legacy, but he's made it clear that I think he wants out in Seattle. We even talked to the Bleav in Seahawks hosts, both Brett Davern and Lofa Tatupu, about this, about comments that Wilson has made where it's a little bit passive aggressive, but it has to be because clearly he cares about his legacy. And so we'll see what happens. I think that Wilson would garner a pretty high asking price via trade because he is a stud quarterback. He's a tier 1 quarterback when he's right in this league. 33 years old as well, so still several years left, but he's under contract for the next 2 seasons with the Seahawks, even despite the fact that he has an out this offseason. Seahawks aren't just going to let him walk, especially considering we saw this last year when the Steelers beat the Seahawks without Wilson. Geno Smith can be a fine backup in this league, but there's a reason why Geno Smith's never been a full-time starter in the NFL.
Yeah, we'll see. Like you said, he got 2 years left, so Steelers got cap space. They'll readjust on some players if they need to. So they got action. They can pretty much hit whoever they want to hit, or touch whoever they want to touch when it comes to the free agency. So we'll see.
Ike, who do you want me to go? Do you want me to go offense or defense? Because I've got several players listed here in my notes. What do you want from me here? Because I'll give you my 2 cents worth on who I'd like to see the Steelers go after.
Let's go on defense, Mark.
Okay, on defense, 2 guys I have my eye on. Number 1, you talk about shoring up the defensive tackle position. How about Hakeem Hicks, who's due to become a free agent? Last 4 years with the Chicago Bears, he made an average of $12 million per season. Now, when he's on the field, he's one of the most dominant interior defensive linemen. The question with him would be, can he stay on the field? Because he's missed significant time in 2 of the last 3 seasons. If you gave him, say, a 2 or 3 year deal, make it very incentive laced to make sure that, we always talk about the best ability is availability. But if you could keep him fresh, bring him and pair him with a Cam Hayward and then bring in a young stud rookie, say in the 2nd or 3rd round of the NFL draft, like you like to say, Ike, we got action.
Yeah, so if you're going on defense, these are the 2 I'm going for because I got some cheese sitting in the bank with this cap. I'm going for Hakeem Hicks because I think that's going to solidify. I'm drafting somebody young, probably the 3rd or 4th round at the D tackle position. And I'm signing Hakeem Hicks to a 3-year deal. Like you said, center base. Now on the back end, I'm going for Stephon Gilmore. I'm gonna see what Stephon Gilmore is talking about. I'm gonna sign him to a 2 or 3 year deal, and I'm still gonna draft another cornerback, try to groom him like an Ike Taylor. And I'm gonna rock with Witherspoon sitting on the other side. That's exactly what I'm doing. Now that solidifies both the back end and the front end of the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. And I'm going high if I don't get a quarterback in the 1st round. I'm going high at the linebacker position because that's exactly what the Pittsburgh Steelers do. They go high on the defensive side, but when they do go high, just ask Devin Bush, just ask TJ Watt. We talking about 1st round draft picks. That's exactly what they do. So that's what I'm gonna do if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I think Hakeem Hicks will be a perfect fit. Stephon Gilmore will be a perfect fit since we talking about the defensive side for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
A few other names: J.C. Jackson, another cornerback out there. Charvarius Ward. You mentioned Gilmore. He was on my list. Carlton Davis as well. So the Steelers do have options at the cornerback position, considering Joe Hayden at 32 do become an unrestricted free agent, as well as Akello Witherspoon, a player we would both like to see the Steelers re-sign in Witherspoon.
100%.
So that's on the defensive side. On the offensive side, I was looking at it. And it was like, man, where do I go with offensive tackle? Whether it's Morgan Moses, Cam Robinson, or Terran Armstead. And Armstead's been one of the best left tackles for the Saints for the last several years, a 3-time Pro Bowler. Due to receive a huge payday. He's only 30 years old, so still several years of productive football left. Shoring up that offensive line, especially considering Chuks Okorafor, yet another Steelers player due to hit free agency.
Man, so that O-line, man, there's so many different. It's a lot of wants for what you really need for the Pittsburgh organization. That free agency part, if you're going to get a quarterback in the first round for Pittsburgh, you got to give him a partner. And what I mean by partner, you got to give him somebody who's going to be a security guard. So second and third round, you got to go offensive line. That's my personal opinion. My personal opinion. If you're going to get your successful for a big bid in the draft, you got to – right now doing it for agency, I'm not really looking at offensive linemen to come in. Really, for Pittsburgh, it's always, for the most part, been through the draft. And honestly, I don't think Pittsburgh offensive line was that bad. I just think Seven wasn't able to move like he once was, like he once could, and that hurted the offensive line. Really, that's what I really think. If you put a Russell Wilson behind that offensive line, the offensive line is not as bad as what you think it is. You know, so the free agency part, I wouldn't really bank on money on that free agency part. Really, I don't think the offensive line is that bad, Mark, to be honest with you. I really don't. I thought Seven just kind of handicapped the offensive line because of his mobility, of him not being mobile, is what I want to say. But you get anybody young with some fresh legs, the offensive line is not as bad as what we thought. I mean, you had a 1,000-yard running back. It can't be that bad. You didn't lead the league in sacks, and your quarterback wasn't that mobile. Cincinnati led the league in sacks, and their quarterback was mobile. So to have a 1,000-yard, rusher and Najee and not lead the league in sacks, even though your quarterback wasn't as mobile as he once was, I'm not changing too much on the offensive line. If I'm going to get something, it's going to be in the draft.
I hear what you're saying, Ike. Also, it's not just Okorafor to be a free agent. Trey Turner as well at the guard position too. So I do think that the line could look
both
just
of them
a little.
Back.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
We bring it. Yeah, we got to bring both of them back because they already been in the locker room, so they understand what it takes to be a Pittsburgh Steelers. So they're already groomed and ready. Bring both of them back. Now them two I'll bring back for sure when it comes down to the offensive side, especially on that offensive line, Mark.
As much as I want to see the Steelers find Big Ben's heir, if the Steelers feel that that's not available, Ike, I don't think there's anything wrong with drafting an offensive lineman in the first or second round, considering they haven't done that since David DeCastro in 2012, Ike. So I feel like I'm a broken record. I feel like I mentioned this, if not on every show you record, like every other show. It's a streak I would like to see come to an end in the 2022 draft.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see. I know when they do draft first-round offensive linemen, they them guys wind up having shots and going to the Hall of Fame, so they know exactly what they're doing.
Canton. We'll go on to the next topic. The Steelers, I got this idea from Pardon My Take of Barstool Sports. So they put out a social graphic to where if you could make a team of all 11 of the same players on offense or defense, which player would win? So they put a graphic up of Tyreek Hill, Deebo Samuels, Kittle, DK Metcalf, TJ Watt, and OBJ. But I wanted to do this with the Steelers in the current team as well. So if you had to pick a player, you could clone said player, all 11 of the same players on offense or defense, which team would be best? Which individual player are you picking on the current Pittsburgh Steelers roster?
One player playing every position?
Yes, sir.
Chase Claypool.
Good choice. He's on my list. He's on my list.
Chase all day. At safety, I know he's mad. He's pissed off. He got an attitude. He's going to hit. At linebacker, I know for sure he would be a great Pittsburgh Steelers linebacker. At corner, we're talking about a guy who's catching everything, and he's covering everything. At defensive tackle, he's going to do what he need to do. You give me all 11 Chase Claypools sitting on the offensive side, you already know. He probably has an arm as a quarterback.
You got the size and speed, Ike, 6'4". He was on my list.
I'm rocking with Chase all day. If I had to pick one player for every position right now in the current team, I'm picking Chase.
I just hope that time management isn't an issue in the scrimmage because I'm going with Najee Harris, Ike. I'm going with Najee Harris. He's impossible to bring down. The physicality he brings, and he's also a willing blocker, something I thought was very underrated about his game in his rookie season. Doesn't fumble the ball, so turnovers aren't going to be an issue. And, oh, by the way, an underrated pass catcher out of the backfield as well. I picked Najee Harris. I think TJ Watt would be in that conversation. I put Minkah Fitzpatrick in that conversation and maybe Cam Hayward if you just wanted someone with a relentless pursuit of the football. 11 Cam Haywards on the field, Ike. It would feel like you're going up against not 11 defenders. It would feel like you're going up against, say, like 15 different defenders because he plays through the echo of the whistle.
Yeah, but it's Cam will get smoked on the outside. Anything outside the numbers, it's a route. We scoring touchdowns, strike up the band all day. And if you're playing wide receivers, man, that's easy to cover. Cam ain't going nowhere. Now, a red zone Cam, it'll be hell to deal with. But anything from the 20 and beyond, oh, yeah, we got action. I feel sorry for you.
Ike, so I want to do this exercise too with any past Steeler can be retired as well. And the player I thought of, someone we've also interviewed here on the Bleav Steelers podcast, Hines Ward. He was a quarterback at Georgia. He has experience playing running back. We know how great of a blocker he is catching the ball. That's a given that he's a receiver. He's not the fastest receiver in the world, but compared to other positions on the field, he's going to be faster than many players. On previous Steelers teams, just given the overall skill set of what we've seen Hines Ward do on a football field, I'll take him. But what say you, Ike Taylor?
Troy Polamalu me all day. Troy can throw the football right hand and left hand. Troy can shoot the basketball right hand and left hand. Troy can switch hit when it came down to baseball right hand and left hand. By the way, Troy's pretty damn good at soccer. So, and if you want to play him in pool, he's going to smoke me in pool. That's what Troy just do. And Troy can throw the football probably better than a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL. So it is, and we all know who he is as a football player. Man, Troy, I was going to say Troy Polamalu, past or present, but since you asked me the current, I went with Chase. I was going to say Troy regardless. Troy Polamalu me, please, all day. All day.
Plus, we know he's getting the information from the man above about the information on what's going to happen before the play actually happens, Ike.
That's exactly what he's doing.
Two other players I had listed, Ike, because Troy was on my list as well. Mean Joe Green and Rod Woodson as well. I thought this was a fun exercise. You could argue that, and look, there are so many Steelers players I am forgetting, but we could talk till sundown on who the best overall Steeler is with this list. But I thought this was a fun exercise, Ike.
Right. I agree.
All right, Ike, the NFL Combine starts tomorrow, March 1st through the 7th. I wanted to ask you, I know you did not go to the Combine, but your pro day was absolutely vital for the future of your career and teams taking notice of you when you were at Louisiana Lafayette. Of all the different tests that they measure at the NFL Combine, Ike, and maybe – but what I want to ask is what's most important, but I don't want to put words into your mouth, but maybe it depends on which position you're talking about. But in your opinion, what's the most important test in terms of actual football ability at the NFL Combine?
The broad jump and the vertical jump. So it lets me know how explosive you are as a person. The broad jump, you leaping 9.5, 10 feet, man. You know how far 9.5, 10 feet is, just jumping into a pool. let alone just standing there without a running start and able to jump that far. That's letting me know the explosive part of your game. The vertical as well is just letting me know I can get some kind of gauge on how fast you are. The higher your vertical is, the faster you run, the more explosive you is. So when you if I had two combine things to take out of, it would be, and two things to gauge, it would be that broad jump and it would be that vertical. Now everything else, man, I just need to see on tape and see if there's any kind of comparison to it. See if you do play fast. And if you're a corner, see if you're able to catch. If you're a receiver, see if you're able to have combat catches, meaning you're always catching the ball, whether somebody's on you or you're wide open, period. But that's exactly what it is. Take away all these football drills, because I get the football drills off of tape. Let me see how explosive this person is, and that's through the broad jump and the vertical jump. And I just take off from there. So now you just give me all the kind of confirmation I need to see off of the tape, and we can work on everything else. So yeah, a lot of these drills, the combine has become very entertaining now, and that's just what it is. But the tape says everything. The tape says everything. Now, what I do like about the combine, it gauges us. We see players without helmets, so we get to hear these stories about how these players got to the combine, and it's a lot of good stories that we get to listen to that we probably would have never thought or heard of if it wasn't for the combine. Mm-hmm. But as far as like the actual combine, the combine for me is watching tape. For me, seeing them in person, it's good to see the young kids coming out in person. Good to hear them talk in front of the camera and all that good stuff. Good to hear their stories. But nah, man, all these drills are cool, but go ahead and give me that broad jump and that vertical jump, and I take it from there.
You heard it here from Ike Taylor. The one I look at, because someone can put on a great display and even shatter world records, which has happened at the NFL Combine.
Right.
But the one I always look at in terms of the quarterback position, Ike, and you might make fun of me, I don't really care, is the Wonderlic test. And the reason why this matters, there is one active Super Bowl winning quarterback who scored less than a 25 on the Wonderlic test that's gone on to win a Super Bowl. That's Patrick Mahomes. He got a 24. Go back and look year after year after year after year, and I've got the last 5 or 6. Matt Stafford got a 38 out of 50. Brady, 33 out of 50. Mahomes is the exception to the rule at 24. Brady again with the Patriots. Nick Foles, 29 out of 50. The Wonderlic test for the quarterback position, when you get late in the playoffs and you're playing against teams that might be more physical, might be faster, might be stronger, it's your mental ability at the quarterback position. Again, you might think it's stupid, Ike, but the Wonderlic test for the quarterback position specifically, in my opinion, is very important. I'm not saying that you can't win a Super Bowl if you've got a low Wonderlic test as a quarterback, but there is a correlation there, something that I noticed every single year. Ike, you might make fun of me, but that's just my honest opinion.
So what was Eli Manning's, Peyton Manning's, Aaron Rodgers, Big Ben's, what was that, Russell Wilson, what was that Wonderlic test, What was the score on that test?
Okay, so hang on. We're going to get research on this right away, Ike. Eli was a 39.
Okay.
Give me just a sec. We're doing live math. Peyton Manning was a 28.
Okay.
Who else did you want to know? Aaron Rodgers?
Aaron Rodgers and Big Ben and Russell Wilson.
Give me just a second. Aaron Rodgers was 35. Russell Wilson and Big Ben. Give me just a second. Right, we're doing this live on the air. Russell Wilson was a 28.
Okay.
And Ben Roethlisberger was a 25. So again, 25 is the threshold of right around where you want to be, 25 and above.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious. That's why I asked.
I think I taught you something new today, Ike. But again, people might make fun of that. But again, specifically for the quarterback position, I'm not saying that it's impossible to win a Super Bowl. You have to get a 25, but there's a nice correlation there. Check that out. And if anyone wants to dispute that, just look it up. And we just gave you all of those quarterbacks that have gone on to win Super Bowls, Ike, who have all scored above that 25 marker threshold. But I'm so excited because, again, Ike, the NFL Combine, the Underwear Olympics, it's going to be great. I love watching the 40. I love watching the 40, the bench press too, 225. And I love to see that. And you get the big lineman up there. And it's just like, we watching the NFL Combine or we watching the Olympics here? But I like watching the Combine because it's like, to me, it's, you might not necessarily be the fastest guy or the strongest guy, but there are things that you can do to make sure that you're prepared to perform well in each of those drills. And for me, it's more so, I don't need you to run necessarily the fastest 40 or the fastest shuttle or bench the most reps, but make sure that you're at least putting up a respectable number, because it lets me know how you've prepared for what really is like the most important moment of your young career to that point. And so I always like to see, which players are making sure that they're prepared in advance of the Combine and how they perform at the Combine as well.
I agree.
Ike, you're the absolute best. Want to give you a shout out. I want to thank the Bleav Podcast Network. I want to thank our producers over at Brinks TV, led by John Brinkus, Courtney Vargas, Herbert Diaz, Lucy Odin, and the crew over there, Ike. Today's sponsors of the Bleav in Steelers podcast, BetOnline, NordVPN, and Athletic Greens. And I want to thank the listeners and the viewers of the Bleav in Steelers podcast. Thank you for tuning in and making us a part of your day.
Got to give a major shout out to you, Mark. Always a pleasure working with you. Got to give a huge shout out to the Bleav podcast, just the whole family, man. We all family. Brinks TV, BetOnline.ag, Athletic Greens, NordVPN. Am I missing one?
No, you got all three. The trifecta, Ike.
The trifecta, man. Just want to give everybody a shout out just for supporting and helping us throughout this process. We will be better in 2022 because every year that's exactly what we do. Make sure y'all continue to tune in, man. We got a lot of good stuff coming from this Combine, not only Combine. We're going to have our top 5 or top 10 for every position heading into the draft. So keep tuning in, y'all viewers and listeners. Please give us a 5-piece. That's a 5-star. Make sure y'all 5-star us, because I know that's how y'all like y'all hotels and y'all good foods when it comes down to it. And thanks for tuning in and watching us weekly.
Let me just give a quick roadmap to our listeners and viewers for the weeks ahead. So we're going to be weekly, Ike. We will have special show after free agency starts on March the 16th. So we'll keep you covered there. We will resume to twice a week in April leading up to the draft, Ike. When you talk about top 5 by position group, we are going to start that in April as well. So keep tuning in. We're going to have a lot of great stuff for the listeners and viewers of the Bleav in Steelers podcast. For Ike Taylor, I'm Mark Bergin. Thank you for listening and watching the Bleav in Steelers podcast. We will see you next week. Until then, take care and so long, everybody.
Peace.